Today is Monday, January 23rd, 2023. And if this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, or if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. This segment of the Gig Geezer is just going to get you up to date with some things and also just show you a little bit about basic maintenance with a cargo van, getting you up to date with things. I got notification by email that my authority has gone live. And so that means that I am allowed now by U.S. Department of Transportation. Um, I am able to transport goods, items, what have you, across state lines. It means interstate commerce. I'm in the interstate commerce game and all, so I'm good to go with that. But yet there's some things that I still have to do, like administratively. I am still waiting on my registration papers to come for the cargo van, and I've still yet to find a dispatcher slash logistics place to try to um, put myself in a position so that I can get the real stuff, the real opportunities, and where I can make money. Um, my goal is not to do the over the road stuff where I'm on the road for 2, 3 weeks at a time. My goal is to try to find the local and regional opportunities so that I can kind of so that I can kind of stick and move and stay close to home and be able to give myself flexibility to do other things. Um, the other thing is I have looked into the e-track system, which is what I've shared before, in which that enables you to secure your loads your cargo bay. Um, it's going to require me to get some wood, get the e-track system and the ratchet straps, but uh, I'm not I'm not really pressed for time with that. I can get the ratchet straps and use the cargo hooks that are provided on the van right now. There's like 10 of them, and so I could do that for the time being. Well, the other thing is um, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the maintenance. And a couple of things that come to mind when it comes to maintenance, with a couple of things that came to mind once I found out the engine that I had in this cargo van, and was something that I shared in a recent segment of the Gig Geezer, is that this is the same engine that's in the Ford Taurus, the Ford Explorer, the F-150s, the six-cylinder 3.7 liter engine. And so what I found is that with Ford and a lot of the manufacturers, what they try to do is make things somewhat universal. In that, for example, the oil filter for this van is the same as in my F-150 and in my Taurus, and it would be the same. It would be the same oil filter for your Explorer and probably other V6 engines. It used to be back in the day, you may have a separate oil filter and separate bolt sizes and so forth for different vehicles. But I think in part the reason why they did that is because it's a matter of saving money in the manufacturing of the vehicles as well. Now, with respect to oil capacity, the oil capacity for the cargo van is 6 quarts, whereas with the Taurus, it's 5.5. But with my F-150, because that's an 8 cylinder, it's 8.8 quarts. Now, I know that's a little technical stuff and all, but these are things that, as a cargo van owner, you probably want to keep in mind if you're the type of person who does most of your own maintenance or repairs. And that's the type of person I am. Another thing that I wanted to share, at least in this segment of the Gig Geezer, and if you don't, and by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hey, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome comments in the section below. Now, I was asked this question in a community post or in an actual upload or in the comment section of upload. And the question was, how did I get into it? How long had I been planning this? Has this been a part of a long reaching end game? And the answer to this is my being in this cargo van. Um, it was not this long drawn out process. In fact, if you'd asked me 3 months ago, would I be looking into getting a cargo van? The answer was no, because it never was on my mind. I wasn't even thinking of it. Same thing actually with a business credit card. And I know that that's when you start talking about tooting horns. But if you recall, in various segments of the Gig Geezer, I shared about how the gig economy put me in a position where I improved my credit score, my FICO score by more than 200 points. I talked about treating gig work as a business, meaning that you get your paperwork, creating that LLC or Inc. or what have you, and um, so that you can open up two business accounts, one for money coming in, one for money coming out. And then after doing that particular segment of the Gig Geezer, I got to thinking about, well, I'm doing this, then I need to also create business credit so that if I have certain plans or goals down the road, I can do things based on the business name and not just on my credit. Now, the thing is, when you start out doing business credit, it's going to be pretty much on the strength of your credit. But as you build business credit, then it's all going to be on the business name. And that's what I'm in the process of doing. Now, how it started for me, it actually occurred in November of last year, 2022. I happened to show up at a Walmart to do a point pickup or roadie, and in the bay to my left was this young guy in a cargo van. Now I'd seen another guy in a cargo van similar to his, being the smaller four-cylinder cargo van, and I noticed that he would be at the WalMarts as well, not knowing what it could be for. It could be for Spark or Roadie or Point Pickup. Those are the likely candidates when you're going to show up in that capacity. We got to talking, we got to talking about just basic business, um, how you try to go about doing things, setting up the business name, the business credit, the business checking accounts, things like that. And that was a refreshing conversation to say the least. I mean, this guy is 26 years old. He's he's like 40% of my age. He's a little older than my daughter, and he's talking with a business mindset, and that was impressive. And so I got to thinking, well, if he, and the other thing was that he's making more money than me. Now, I've done well by most standards doing mostly gig food delivery work, and I've shared those numbers in that I've averaged 6,000 a month since January 2021. That's over 2 years now, averaging those type of numbers. And also, for whatever's worth, those numbers have also been uh, documented here on the Gig Geezer channel. But it got me to thinking. It got me thinking about how this young guy who's 40% of my age is doing things in a way that I hadn't even thought about doing. But at the same time, um, there looked like there's a possibility that that's something that I can do. He said, now, you want to get your dispatcher and get your authority. I didn't know what he meant by dispatcher and authority, but now I know, having shared with y'all today, that I am now allowed, based on the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Um, I'm good to go with that. Um, well, so a few weeks later, I got to thinking about, okay, maybe it's time now for me to look into business credit card. And so I went to the bank that I've dealt with for decades, and I was shocked that I was approved right there on the spot. I mean, didn't even, and the guy told me, hey, you in the line, and the credit line that you got is one of the higher ones for a first time applicant. Later that week, well, the guy also set me up with an appointment because I told him, well, I was thinking by now, I'm thinking about I might want to look into a cargo van. And the guy set me up with an appointment with a small business manager who handles uh, transactions like that. And I went on a Monday for the business card. By that Friday, I was approved for a business loan for a van, not knowing well, I had an idea of the van, at least initially, because I was looking on Carvana, but I found out Carvana no longer does business business transactions. It's only for personal vehicles for personal purposes only. And by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome comments in the section below. So, um, so within a week, I've been hooked up with a business credit card, business loan. Now it's a matter of me finding an actual cargo van. Now I knew that my approval for a loan was good for 30 days, but I didn't want to sit on that forever. It took me about 10 days. Well, it actually took me exactly 9 days because I was approved on December 7th, but I completed the transaction for the van on December 16th, in which where I had to drive outside of Atlanta to find a cargo van. So that is a long kind of story short about how I ended up with the cargo van. It was never this long term plan or anything like that. But I have been seeing the signs in which the gig economy has. I'd seen the signs back in November and into December how the gig economy has shown signs of change, and the signs of change have not been as good as what people are trying to fool people into thinking. In fact, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, at least in the YouTube sphere, is exactly what I thought. It ain't getting easier. And so I figured that, well, what I'm going to do is put myself in a position to be able to do more than what I'm doing now. And so, if you notice in the last segment of the Gig Geezer, I shared about how, yes, I've put the van into service, and I'm making what I've been making, but I know I need to make more. So, again, I am still working on putting myself in a position so that I can find those real load opportunities on a consistent basis. And hopefully, this week I will be able to come back and share some progress on that. But I also want to show y'all at least under the hood, up under the vehicle, the basic maintenance, at least changing the oil on a cargo van, at least a Ford Transit cargo van. I believe it will be the same for the smaller cargo van as well, the Connect van. There's the filter may be smaller, and also the capacity quart capacity would be smaller because it's a full cylinder you're dealing with. You're probably dealing with 5 quarts, and you're probably dealing with a smaller filter. What's interesting is that when I owned the Nissans, my Pathfinder oil filter was the same as my daughter's Nissan Rogue oil filter, and it was also the same size as the Maxima. So those are some things that's just me talking there. But anyway, when I want to segue to how change the oil on this particular vehicle, and I'll wrap it up from the gig studio.
All right, so we're back at the gig studio. And what I'm going to do is share with y'all about changing oil on a Ford Transit 250 cargo van. Now, admittedly, my reason for doing my own oil changes dates back to my first new vehicle ownership back in 1988. Yes, that was before fax machines, before cellular phones, before YouTube, email, internet as we know today. Well, what happened was I'd been doing my own oil changes for the previous 2 years in my car ownership experience. But I'm thinking because I got this brand new 1988 Ford Escort, which is like the predecessor to what the Fiesta or the previous model, the Focus. Um, I'm going to go by the dealership. I'm going to go by Jack Roach Ford, which is where I bought it from back home in Houston. And I was charged $52 for that oil change. In fact, someone from the dealership had to take me back to my apartment so that I can get additional money so I can pay them so I can get my vehicle. I realized that why am I gonna that $52, that's like almost a year's worth of oil changes, at least back then. Oil was like 89 cents a quart, and an oil filter was like $3.99. So from that point, I refuse to give a dealership any money unless I absolutely positively have to. And so hopefully what I'm going to be able to show, and I know that there's other uploads of changing oil on YouTube, but I'm going to do it just my way. And so getting right into it. Now, What you see here, the actual footage, is me having maneuvered myself to where I'm looking almost directly at the oil pan, and then also and then I kind of maneuver myself over so I can give you a shot of the oil filter. But then, as you see, going back to the oil um, plug, that identifying that oil plug took me actually looking at another YouTube video to locate it. And the thing that kind of gave it away was that kind of rusted, it looks like a rusted pipe, but that's your exhaust pipe. And then I looked to the right and I looked upward and I see this this plug, this bolt that looks the appearance of it is very subtle. It doesn't look like something that you would think on a vehicle where, like on my Taurus, I go to the end of the kind of look back as if I'm going to the back of the vehicle, look for the oil pan, and at the back of the oil pan, typically that's where you can find your oil plug. And that's the way it is on most vehicles. And even on the F-150, although F-150s now don't have actual screw-in bolt oil plugs, there's still a location where you look to the back of the engine where you can find the oil pan, and there's something that you turn to let the oil out. Well, now once I identified it, I already based on that YouTube video, the content creator said, well, you'll need a 15 millimeter socket, and so what you see there on the inset is a 15 millimeter socket, and what I use to break the bolt was a 3/8 breaker bar. Now I know for some folk, I'm really talking mechanic lug nut head type stuff, but those of you who know what I'm talking about, a breaker bar is invaluable. In fact, you can use a breaker bar instead of an actual lug nut wrench to break the bolts on your tires, at least for your cars and trucks. I don't know about cargo van, but I think it's probably the same thing. But that said, so I broke the bolt with the 3/8 breaker bar, and then once I broke that bolt, then I went back with a 3/8 ratchet going counterclockwise to continue letting out the bolt. And then as you see here now, you'll see here where the oil's coming out. So that's proof that, hey, I got to that point. Now, the oil filter, as you can tell, it's pretty open. I know in some cars, an oil filter could be in a very kind of odd location, and it can be very frustrating. And the only way that you may be able to access it is with an oil filter tool. Well, I was able to get that oil filter off with my bare hand. But for some folk, maybe an oil filter tool is necessary. And with that particular oil filter, that's a very smooth surface oil filter. That is not something that is of my preference. As you see here, I prefer the oil filter where you got some type of material at the end of it so that you can grab on and be able to tighten or unloosen the oil filter. Now, going back where I mentioned about the oil plug, you're going to go under. You can either go in on the passenger side by the tire and look up towards the engine, or you can slide back like I did and just look up towards the engine along the passenger side to locate that plug. And then again, the oil filter is very obvious on the driver's side. Now, um, oil. With the Ford V6 engine, the recommended weight is 5 weight 20, but with a cargo van, the recommended oil is full synthetic. Now, here's where some people can make a mistake, at least based on what mechanics have told me. Now, with synthetic oil, you're able to use it. You're able to go longer intervals between oil changes. Some say 7,500, some say 10,000 miles. Well, the problem with that is depending on where you are and the type of driving you do, what you're doing is creating sludge in that engine, and that can cause a problem down the road. At least what has been recommended to me, you want to go 5,000 miles At worst case, 6,000 miles. At least this is just what's been recommended to me. And that's a number that I've kind of stuck with for my personal vehicles. And um, I've not, and at least I'll just put it like this: in my ownership experience, I've had an F 150 that would lasted 265,000 miles. I've had two Maximas that lasted 230 plus thousand miles. I had a Ford Taurus that lasted over 300,000 miles. My F 150 got over 125,000 miles. And so I'd like to think I kind of know what I'm talking about. That said, again, the capacity is 6 quarts on that Ford Transit 250, and you're going to use a 15 millimeter socket to break the bolt. Um, oil weight 5 weight 20, and the where you the oil cap is on the driver's side, top left on the driver's side. um, the next thing that I'll probably need to do is replace the air filter, but that's something that appears that I can order online. I would prefer not going to the part shop like Napa or AutoZone or O'Reilly's. I would prefer not to do that. Now you can go to the dealership, but you're going to pay dealership money. So that's all I have for this segment of the Gig Geezer. Hopefully, I've been of some help and some inspiration to you to let you see that, hey, there are some things that you, if you choose to be a cargo van owner, there are things that you can do and you not have to pay for if you have the ability or the means to do so. And if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer and any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hey, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.